they're lining up. There's, I think, Turkey's President Erdogan, who has brokered this agreement for Russia and Ukraine to sign. There will be actually separate agreements to get grain moving. It's been held up for months while the war has been taking place over the past 5 months. The Foreign Office earlier said the agreement must not only be agreed but also implemented. We have worked closely with the UN, Turkey, Ukraine and our G7 and G20 partners to unblock the grain that Putin has deliberately used to weaponise food. Those are some words from the Foreign Office here. Some 22 million tonnes of grain is stuck around the Black Sea and will hopefully move. But as we were hearing from Professor Chris Elliott a few minutes ago, it might be at least 2 weeks before anything starts being moved. Let's just have a listen and see if there is translation here.
Signed between Russia and Ukraine, witnessed by Turkey and the United Nations. Welcome to the signature ceremony. Now, I would like to invite His Excellency UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres for his remarks.
Your Excellency President Erdogan, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today there is a beacon on the Black Sea, a beacon of hope, a beacon of possibility, a beacon of relief in a world that needs it more than ever. I want to recognize and thank all those who helped make it happen. To our hosts, President Erdogan and the government of Turkey, your facilitation and persistence have been essential through every step of this process. Çok teşekkür ederim. Thank you very much. To the representations of the Russian Federation and Ukraine, you have overcome obstacles and put aside differences to pave the way for an initiative that will serve the common interests of all. Promoting the welfare of humanity has been the driving force of these talks. The question has not been what is good for one side or the other. The focus has been on what matters most for the people of our world. And let there be no doubt, this is an agreement for the world. It will bring relief for developing countries on the edge of bankruptcy and the most vulnerable people on the edge of famine. And it will help stabilize global food prices, which were already at record levels even before the war, a true nightmare for developing countries. Specifically, the initiative we just signed opens up paths for significant volumes of commercial food exports from 3 key Ukrainian ports in the Black Sea: Odessa, Chebanovsk and Yuzhny. The shipment of grain and food stocks into world markets will help bridge the global food supply gap and reduce pressure on high prices. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this agreement did not come easy. Since the war started, I've been highlighting that there is no solution to the global food crisis without ensuring full global access to Ukraine's food products and Russian food and fertilizers. Today, we took important steps to achieve this objective, but it has been a long road. In April, after being received by President Erdogan, I met with President Putin and President Zelensky to propose a plan for solutions, and we have been working every day since. It took immense efforts and commitment by all sides and weeks of around-the-clock negotiations. The commitment and dedication are even more vital today. This initiative must be fully implemented because the world so desperately needs it to tackle the global food crisis. We count on the government of Turkey to maintain its critical role going forward, and I am here to pledge the full commitment of the United Nations. We will remain closely involved in working for the agreement's success. We are ramping up efforts to ensure the UN is positioned to deliver on its commitments. I am grateful for the work of the 2 UN task forces that developed a parallel, coherent and coordinated approach. One led by Martin Griffiths and the Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs, and including the International Maritime Organization, focused on the shipment of Ukrainian grains through the Black Sea. Today, we are announcing the establishment of a joint coordination centre to monitor implementation of the Black Sea Initiative. The other task force, led by Rebecca Greenspan, Secretary-General of UNCTAD, centred on facilitating the unimpeded access to food and fertilizers originating in the Russian Federation to global markets. And it also resulted in an agreement. I urge all sides to spare no efforts to implement their commitments. We must also spare no effort for peace. This is an unprecedented agreement between two parties engaged in bloody conflict. But that conflict continues, and people are dying every day, and fighting is raging every day. The beacon of hope on the Black Sea is shining bright today, thanks to the collective efforts of so many. In these trying and turbulent times for the region and all globe, let that beacon guide the way towards easing human suffering and securing peace. Thank you.
Birleşmiş Milletler Genel Sekreterine teşekkür ediyoruz.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Secretary General.
Değerli konuklar,
Distinguished guests,
şimdi Türkiye
now I
Cumhurbaşkanı
would like
Sayın Recep Tayyip
to
Erdoğan
invite to the floor His Excellency President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan for his address.
Sayın Genel Sekreter,
Distinguished Secretary
saygıdeğer
General,
bakanlar, kıymetli
honorable
heyet üyeleri,
ministers, esteemed members
sizleri en kalbi
of
duygularımla,
the
saygıyla
delegation, I
selamlıyorum.
greet you all with my most heartfelt
Medeniyetlerin
feelings and respect.
Ve kıtaların buluşma noktası
Welcome
İstanbul'a
to Istanbul,
hepiniz
the
hoş
meeting
geldiniz.
point of civilizations and
29
continents.
Mart'ta yaptığımız ve müzakere sürecinde
We're together
önemli bir
again
dönüm noktasını
after the
teşkil
meeting
eden
we held on
toplantının
the 29th of March, which constituted an important turning point in the negotiation process. I'm very pleased to welcome you, our esteemed friends, back in Istanbul on another historic day.
uzun süredir meşgul eden küresel gıda krizinin çözümünde
We are proud to be instrumental in an initiative that will play a major role in solving the global food crisis that has been on the world's agenda for a long time. With the text agreed upon today, from Africa to the Middle East, from America to Asia, we will contribute together to preventing the danger of hunger that billions face from all over the world. Ensuring world security of supply in agricultural and food stuff is important in many aspects. With this step taken, possible additional soaring prices caused by the loss of yield to be caused by current heat waves and drought will be prevented. We are also helping with controlling food inflation, which has become a global problem. Of course, we did not get to this point all of a sudden. We have carried out an intensive and arduous process with the Ukrainian and Russian authorities and the United Nations authorities for the shipment of the grain waiting in Ukrainian silos through the Black Sea. We have been in constant contact with our Ukrainian and Russian counterparts throughout the whole process. We have held extensive consultations to address the expectations and allay the concerns of both countries regarding this sensitive process. The ministers of foreign affairs have made great efforts. The contributions of the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Guterres, and his team contributed to the plan, the first draft of which was prepared by them, and that's very commendable. I would like to take this opportunity to thank His Excellency President Zelensky and His Excellency President Putin for their leadership. With the vessel traffic that will start in the coming days, we will offer a new airwave for breathing from the Black Sea to many countries worldwide.
ve varacağı limana ulaşmasına kadar
From the exit of the vessels to their safe transfer and arrival at the port of destination, consensus has been reached upon all processes. The execution and supervision of this extremely important plan will be carried out by the Joint Coordination Center to be established in Istanbul.
planın başarıyla uygulanmasında uluslararası toplumun desteği de
The support of the international community is without doubt of great importance in the successful implementation of the plan.
bundan yaklaşık
Distinguished friends,
4 ay
about
önce
4 months
yine
ago,
İstanbul'da Ukrayna
again in
ve Rusya
Istanbul,
arasında ev sahipliğimizde yapılan müzakerelerde
negotiations were held between Ukraine and Russia, and we made progress back then. And this raised hopes that the war would end. Unfortunately, the developments that took place after that meeting fueled the conflicts. We have been saying from the very beginning that there will be no winner in this war, that not only the parties but the whole world will suffer losses.
5 aydır aralıksız devam eden çatışmalar
The conflicts that have been going on without interruption for about 5 months and their global effects unfortunately confirm this prediction.
susması uzadıkça ekonomik
As it drags on to silence the guns,
da artıyor.
we have more economic costs and also more human losses.
Ülkelerini değil,
The war not only adversely affects the parties and the countries in the region, but the whole of humanity, including those in the most remote corner of the world. However, we also believe that this trend is not destined. We want these conflicts, which cost the lives of innocents, to end as soon as possible. We all know that there will be no losers of a just peace.
bugün Rusya ve Ukrayna tarafıyla İstanbul'da atmakta
This
bu müşterek
joint step we're taking today in Istanbul, together with Russia and Ukraine,
olmasını
will be a new turning point that will revive the hopes for peace. This is my sincere hope. Whatever direction the developments on the field would take, the war will finally end at the negotiating table.
tesis ettiğimiz bu dostane ve barış
This friendly and peaceful atmosphere that we have established
edilmesi tüm insanlığın yararına.
Will be to the benefit of the whole humanity, and this will transform into steps aimed at ending the war. We will continue to act with the awareness of the responsibility our understanding of civilization imposes on us. We will continue to fulfill the requirements of being neighbors until peace prevails in our region. May God help us all. As I end my words with these thoughts, I would like to thank you again. Thank you all for your efforts.
Bugün
I hope that the deal that will be signed today will be instrumental for the good of our countries and all humanity. I also would like to express my gratitude personally and on behalf of my people to everyone who has contributed to the process to come to this day, and I greet you again with this respect. We would like to thank His Excellency President Erdogan for his remarks.
Well, you've heard words there from Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, preceded by the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Let's just stay on these pictures now, see if they're, this agreement is due to be signed now. They are there. It was supposed to have happened, what, about 48 minutes ago. These things are often delayed, aren't they? But let me bring you some words, what the UN Secretary-General had to say. Beacon of hope and relief he talked about on the possibility too on the Black Sea. The Black Sea, beacon of hope, he said, was shining bright. He praised the determination and persistence of Turkey to broker and indeed secure this deal, which is about to be signed now. There's no solution, he said, to the world's food shortage without full access to Ukrainian grain and Russian food and fertilizer. Let's have a look now at what's going on there. And the books there, going to be a signing And you can see there is the UN Secretary General. Russia's Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu is there. Ukrainian Infrastructure Minister too, as well as Turkey's President. And the man you're looking at in his orange tie there, that is the UN Secretary General. The UN and Turkey brokering this historic agreement to allow, or certainly designed to allow, 22 millions of grain and other agricultural products through Black Sea ports, stuck for so many months because of the war. So let's just sit on these pictures just for a moment there as we do. So some significant words from the UN Secretary General and Turkey's President speaking there, dignitaries from Russia and Ukraine. Let's bring in Alex Rossi. So we've been waiting for it, haven't we, this agreement to be signed for around 50 minutes. Alex, that is now happening as we've heard some words from the UN Secretary General and some praise for Turkey.
Yeah, I mean, it is, whichever way you look at it, it is an extraordinary piece of diplomacy. Remember that this agreement that's been brokered is happening at a time when Ukraine and Russia are locked in a profoundly bitter, fratricidal war that is still raging across the country. So to see two ministers from the respective countries sitting down, albeit separated by a fairly long table, is really something of an achievement. Now, it's taken, to get this far, nearly 3 months of negotiations. As you can imagine, there isn't much trust. There's a great deal of suspicion on both sides of each other's motives, but at the end, the agreement has been signed. Now, the goal in all of this is, of course, it's not about ending the war. That is, I think, a long way off, but it is about reintegrating the Ukrainian food economy back into global markets. Now, something like 22 million tons of grain is currently trapped in silos in Ukrainian ports, primarily the Ukrainian port city of Odessa, and it can't get out because of a naval blockade that Russia has put in place since it launched its invasion on the 24th of February. Now, this agreement is very focused, but what it should mean in time, and according to senior UN officials, it could be as soon as 10 days, perhaps 2 weeks, when we see the first ships leaving with grain. But it should mean eventually, and to get fully working, it perhaps might take a month because it is a big logistical challenge. But you could see something like 5 million metric tons of grain leaving Ukrainian ports, heading through the Black Sea and into Turkish waters through the Bosphorus, where it will be distributed around the world, particularly to countries in the global south, which are really facing inflationary pressure as a result of the cost of living crisis, and the spectre of hunger and famine is becoming more and more real every day. Now, according to the World Food Programme, something like 47 million people are facing acute hunger as a direct consequence of this conflict, and 71 million people, according to the WFP, are being plunged into poverty as a direct consequence of this conflict. So the urgency with which this agreement now needs to be implemented is extremely great. Now, it is a day of hope. It is a day of optimism. You heard the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, speaking there, talking about a beacon of hope on the Black Sea. But there are caveats in all of this. As I was saying earlier, trust is in very short supply, and it could be that even though there is ink now on this agreement, that it could break down very easily. It's called the Black Sea Initiative, but perhaps the best way of looking at it is really as a ceasefire at sea. Now, the way the deal will work is it's going to be closely monitored by all sides in this, the Ukrainians, the Russians, the Turks, and also officials from the United Nations. There'll be a joint coordination centre set up in Istanbul, which will monitor the ships leaving Ukrainian ports. But crucially, and this was a sticking point in the negotiations, particularly for Moscow, there will be physical inspections of ships heading back to Ukrainian ports to make sure that there won't be any weapons on board those ships that Ukraine could use to prosecute the war. So that's kind of where we are at it. But of course, as I was saying, it could break down. But I think it's fair to say that this is a big moment, and it is a moment of hope.
We'll certainly see what happens, won't we, Alex? Thank you very much indeed for being with us for the last hours. We've watched a moment of history, haven't we, in Istanbul there, this historic agreement to certainly try to get millions of tonnes of grain moving from Ukraine. More reaction to that to come during the course of the afternoon. In the meantime, I want to bring you some breaking news. The UK government has responded to the legal action launched by the European Union over the Northern Ireland Protocol, saying a legal dispute is in nobody's interest. The EU, I was telling you a short time ago, has accused the government of failing to comply with significant parts of Northern Ireland's post-Brexit trade rules. Well, the heightening of tensions comes after the controversial Northern Ireland Protocol bill cleared the House of Commons.
This is not about us saying there is a problem with this part of the bill or a problem with that part of the bill. That's not the point. The point is we have an international agreement signed and ratified by both sides. There should be no UK bill currently going through Parliament. We are supposed to be implementing this protocol together. And that's why we believe that the simple fact that a law has been introduced in order to unilaterally change the way the protocol works is inappropriate and is linked to the infringement that we have presented today.
Let's get the thoughts of our political correspondent, Mari Aurora. So the EU, Mari, flexes its muscle. The UK responds. What happens next?
Well, the issue with this now is it really does feed in quite heavily to the Tory leadership campaign. We know at the moment Boris Johnson is technically still Prime Minister, but we won't be there for much longer. And these infringement procedures are going to be a thorn in the side of both Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak while they try and essentially sell themselves as hard Brexiteers and the best Brexit candidate. The issue there is, ironically, Liz Truss is the kind of Brexiteer favourite, despite originally being a Remainer, and